The aim of Black Mental Matters is to tell experiences with honesty. Therefore, some discussions may trigger an adverse reaction. If a discussion is beginning to upset you, we advise that you please stop listening and talk to your support team.
You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. That's a quote from Maya Angelou. How you doing? I'm Vince the Voice, and welcome to Black Mental Matters, where we tackle the tough conversations with love, truth, and unapologetic purpose. I'm your host, and today's guest is someone I go way back with, all the way back to our childhood in Gary, Indiana, Terrytown. Oh my goodness, it's none other than Ina Johnson Meyers. And she's more than an international keynote speaker and best-selling author, 8 times over, by the way. She's also the CEO of When She Rise, a Christ-centered movement helping women recognize, recover from, and rise above narcissistic abuse. She's been through the fire, especially in her military career, and now she's using her strong voice to bring healing to women all around the world. So buckle up and lean in, because today we're talking about spotting red flags, walking in truth, and letting purpose rise from pain. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my girl from the town, T-Town, is Ina. How you doing, Ina?
I'm great, Vince. How are you doing?
So good. Welcome to Black Mental Matters. It's so good to have you here, sis. And it's been a long time, but hey, it feels like just yesterday. We was running those streets and having a good time. And just in fact, before we dive into all the work that you're doing, let's take it back for a minute, back to Gary, Indiana, and Terrytown. Now, I know what she was like, but what was young Ina like? And what were those early roots that helped shape you into who you are today?
I think those early roots are in Gary back then. It was a family community. We all at that age, it was a day where if mama didn't get you, mama didn't see you, the neighbor gonna get you. And the neighbor gonna call mama and daddy. And then when you get home, they gonna get you.
That's right.
So it was a community like no other. As I've grown up and going into adulthood, I don't see communities like we had growing up. It was true community. And that shaped, all of us for as we went into adult world and went into this new world after graduation. But we also got to see a lot of the things that, we saw and we dealt with, the love that we had, that a lot of people didn't have that growing up.
That's right. And I like to also let people know, that, as we grew up, everyone in charge looked like us. And I'm talking about when people of color was black folks, and so, the mayor, Hatcher, and the superintendents and the lawyers and everything. And that's not an experience that I don't think anybody else in America can really say the way it was, that our families, and that's how it was.
Mm-hmm. That was normal. That was normal for us. So when we went out in the world, we thought that was going to be the normal for everybody.
But we found out. We found out. But it's all right. It got us ready, and that's why we're here today. And that I give it all the credence for our success, whatever it is. Now and it's funny, all of us, I think in our group back then, all of us went to the military for a minute. All of us didn't stay, but all of us went for a minute. But you spent a career in the military, and this is where this journey that you're on now began. What was it like in that environment? I understand you navigating some toxic relationships, and you got into this whole recognizing the signs of narcissistic abuse. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I didn't recognize what it was in my military career. I was raised by a military mother. My mother and father were both military. So, when I went into the military, I went in with the understanding or the mindset of what she taught me, because what she was in. My mother was a WAC. So that was Women's Army Corps. So men and women were separated during my mother's time. When I came in, we served together. So the mindsets and the I guess governance that needed to be there when they started putting men and women together wasn't there yet, because it was new. So there were a lot of things that should have been in place to protect women and some men also in place that wasn't. So when I went into the military, I didn't see it as toxic. I knew that I learned that, people had some other structures, in their family dynamics. And I, saw that it was something different than what I grew up with. Um, but I didn't know it then as narcissistic. I saw it as toxic. And a lot of times I felt that I needed, or, because I came from the background that I came from, that I'm going to show people how love is. And, I'm going to, be that light in your dark place,
Mm.
not understanding that even when, um, you know, traumatic things may not have happened to you in your childhood, but when you deal with toxic people, that traumatic things happen to them, that toxicity is going to pour over onto you.
Yes.
And that's also why I work with women, because even in our, not understanding that, when we go through that trauma is still going to pour into our children and our grandchildren and everywhere else. So that's
Mm.
why it's important to deal with that situation so that it doesn't disrupt the generation and it doesn't hurt the generations and nations that you have in contact with. Because
Mm.
every time, all that trauma is going to pour out somewhere.
Somewhere. Well, you become now a leading voice on narcissistic abuse. And for folks who don't know the real side, how do you define narcissistic abuse? And what are some of the key red flags that people often ignore?
Uh, Now, when people talk about narcissism is on a scale. But when you talk about narcissistic abuse, that's not on that scale. That's a personality disorder. And as far as narcissistic abuse personality disorder, sociopaths, psychopaths are all cluster B personality disorders. A lot of people don't really understand that. They think it's on the scale of narcissism, where if you're self conscious, or if you're self absorbed, then that's what narcissism is. Narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder. It is
Mm.
not just narcissistic.
It's
Um,
like clinical, a
right.
clinical, so they can't help themselves.
They no, and they, like I said, a lot of they can help themselves. I'm gonna say this again. They can help themselves. They won't help themselves because they know they're abusing. They just won't stop it because it's getting them what it's getting them the purpose that they need. It's getting the validation. It's getting them whatever the finances. It's getting them whatever it is that they need. So they know it, but they won't stop it because I will say they can't stop it, but they know they're doing it.
Mhm.
So um, when narcissism also is very, for many people, it changed it's a process, but it looks different to many people. Narcissism is manipulation, and not manipulation for your good, manipulation for their good. Narcissism is when you have a situation where someone that you're an intimate relationship with, they're purposely devaluing you in front of people so that they look like the good person and you always look like the bad person, even though the situations that happen, the situations they talk about, is actually reverse manipulation. They project their bad habits and their trauma on you. That is what they're like I said, that is their way of gaining control over not only you, but over the situation and the narrative of how people look at you. Narcissism is about just needing the validation. Um, they have to have the validation, whereas people look at them as they're the great person and look at everybody that's around them as the bad person. When you're with a person that's narcissistic, you have a lot of anxiety, and oftentimes you don't even know why you have that anxiety, um, because it's a very up and down roller coaster relationship. It's not until you start talking to other people and speaking, getting into therapy, that you start understanding why you feel all the anxiety that you do, because it's something that is just it's very insidious, and it's very It's very slow burning. It's kind of like how a frog, um, people have said, why doesn't a frog jump out of the water? Because it's slow. It
Mm,
happens so slowly that you don't even recognize that it does.
mm,
When you're talking about narcissistic abuse, the trauma that it causes not only to your mind, but to your bodies.
mm,
Being in that toxic situation, in that, fight or flight trauma response all the time, when people tell me, especially women, um, talk about the things that's wrong with them, whether it's diabetes, whether it's fibromyalgia, whether it's, you know, skin diseases and things like that, trauma causes so many medical issues in women that they don't even understand until they start doing the work to find out that they've been in a trauma response. Their body has been in trauma for sometimes childhood, sometimes since the relationship. I've talked to women that's been in traumatic situations for like 30, 40 years,
mm.
not even understanding what it was because it's so hard in the beginning to verbalize. People just don't even understand the words for it. They see it, but they don't understand what it is because it is so confusing. It's hard to accept that somebody that is smiling at you and say they love you, but they're constantly doing things to undermine you and to, you feel the hate, but you think you're being over, you're
Exaggerate.
exaggerating
Over exaggerate.
because
Mm,
they're smiling at you. They're telling people they love you, but they're personally undermining you. And it
mm.
wasn't until COVID, actually, that a lot of people started understanding what that was. Because
That's
when
right.
you can leave, or when you go to work or go on vacation or whatever, you can separate yourself from that trauma. But during COVID, that trauma and you were in the same house and you couldn't leave.
Mm,
So like I said, they've been talking about narcissistic personality disorder for years,
mm,
but we didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand what it was. I actually thought it was something that you had to be hospitalized for. I did not know that it was a personality disorder that walks among us.
mm.
So,
Well, this conversations that we have and the things that we do now at this stage in our lives has personal connections to us. I don't know if you mind sharing why you got into this world and to this field and to this mission of helping others.
mhm. I got into it because I finally realized what it was. I started doing research well before God delivered me from that situation. Because I couldn't understand why what was said and what I felt was so different.
Mm,
When people tell you they love you, but they show you totally opposite. When people say they love you, but they're destroying you from they're cutting your legs from under you in front of people, in front of situations, and you're hearing the words "I love you," but you're not seeing the results. So in seeing that, and actually, we had a presidency some years ago that kind of showed me what narcissism looked like because I'm looking at that situation and I'm seeing my situation and I'm seeing that, okay, the behaviors, you know, are kind of the same. And so then I started doing the research. And then when I started doing that research, I discovered some of the past relationships that, oh, that's what that was. That's
uh-huh.
how,
Yes.
oh, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And
Yes.
so some of the healing part is to be able to recognize it in every place, in all the other relationships that you've had.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of how this situation happened. I was speaking on once I started going through this. I was honestly in my prayer closet having a panic attack because God had delivered me from that situation, but now I had bills coming. I had, life had just fallen apart for me, and I'm in my prayer closet asking God, Lord, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't, I'm not going to be able to get my bills paid. I'm not. And he literally told me to get up and get in front of my computer. And he wrote my first book.
Wow.
For real.
Wow.
And every time, because you're still mad and you still got some trauma, in that. So every time I start writing something or typing something that I thought is supposed to be in the book, putting a slide in there, he would vex my spirit so bad that I had to keep hitting the backspace button until get her out of there.
Yes.
And then, I got the peace again. And then, he continued to allow me to write.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I knew that was all God, because again, he taught me how to self-publish the book. I had no idea. I've never even wanted to write a book ever.
Mm.
So he taught me how to self-publish it. And in 71 days, I went from laying on the closet floor, praying, to help me and to write the first book.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, he sent me to Paris to speak about narcissistic abuse.
Mm.
Again, never, ever, ever had a desire to do this, and especially speak in front of people. I'm retired military, but when you go through this trauma, it strips away your voice.
That's right.
Because there's so much lies and so much things coming at you, it shuts you down verbally. And that's how they're able to keep a hold of you, because you don't talk to anybody about it. You don't try to resolve any issues anymore, because every time you try to resolve an issue, you become the issue.
Load up. That's right.
So it shuts your voice down. So I had no desire to go to Paris and do this. When I went there and I'm on the stage with all these, doctor this and doctor that, and people that have 4 or 5 PhDs, and I'm crying, telling him I am not worthy. I am not worthy to do this. You know, I'm unqualified. He told me, they do not qualify you. I qualify you. And I have qualified you to do this.
Mm. Mm.
So I got up on that stage and I did what he told me to do, shaking, crying sometimes,
Mm.
and just, I dropped my papers all over the place, and the ladies come and help me and pick the papers because I'm so nervous. But over time, he's just been amazing like that. And he actually, if it wasn't that in Paris, it was either in Rome. I can't remember which place it was, but he told me at that time that not only was he using my voice to help other people, I was going to start using other women's voice, help other women use their voice
Use their voice
to help people. So that's how that all came about. It is not something I sought out. It is not something I even desired to do.
Well,
And then it
me,
became a spread. I'm sorry,
well,
go ahead.
no. One of the things that I admire once we reconnect everything is how you blend your faith into your healing work. So the question I have for you is, how does a Christian-centered approach maybe differ from the traditional therapy models? Because a lot of times, people are either one or the other, and that's it. But by bringing it together, or talk about that a little bit.
Christian-centered approach is dealing with it from biblical perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because the world once tells you to get back at them. The world tells you that you ain't never got to forgive them. The world tells you that, what they did, you need to hold on to that hatred. This is the problem with that. God sent his only begotten son for us. When we choose not to forgive, God doesn't forgive us. When we choose to hold on to that hate, we are limiting the blessings that God desires for us. When we, go after the person ourselves, we limit again our own blessings. For many of us, God can't give us the things, the blessings, the promises that he has already ordained for us. Because one, when we're in those toxic relationships, because we're givers, we'll give them everything God has
Mm,
given us. We
wow.
give. That's why we've gotten into those relationships,
You
because
have
we think
nothing
that
left to give after that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so all we're going to do is just give it. Every
Waste
good
it.
thing God gives us, we're going to give it away.
Mm,
And so that's why it takes God removing us out of that situation, helping us heal in a Christian principle manner so that we don't hold that hatred into our heart. Because again, all that hatred does is just destroy your body. So if you've been in a situation, a toxic situation, where you've been the principle of that situation is to destroy you, you keep destroying yourself
mm,
once you get out of that situation. And
wow.
when you get out of that situation, you're blocking your blessings. You're blocking, your healing. You're blocking everything that God has ordained for you. That's why it's important to do it from a Christian perspective. Because when you heal, when you forgive, your forgiveness has nothing to do with your proximity to that toxic person.
Mm,
You forgive for yourself and you go on and move. When God delivered me from that, He told me I am not to allow the devil back into my life.
mm.
That was the easiest okay I've ever said in my life. Okay,
I
it ain't like it was coming back, but okay, you
Well,
know.
no, thank you for sharing that. I know that can help so many people.
Yeah.
We've only got so much time, and I so much I want to talk about. But one of the things when we emailed one another, and that's where I got that line. You had as a part of your signature down there, red flags don't turn green over time. I was like, whoa! It hit me like a ton of bricks. I want you to quick. Can you unpack that for our listeners out there?
When you see and hear what you see and hear,
Ha.
don't act like you didn't.
Mm,
Because just because, and I've heard people say, well, he's nice to me. Okay, but if you see how that person is manipulating and, trying to dominate other people, trust and believe it's coming to your door sooner or later.
mm,
So don't try to unsee, because those red flags, because they're not pointed at you right now, they will be pointed at you when you fall out of line with what that person wants you to do.
mm,
So, like I said, once you start seeing the situation, once you start asking questions, once you start, questioning, why are you behaving like that? Then you become the object of the red flags now. Everybody else saw the red flags. All you saw was green and love and joy and happiness, because
mm,
that's what you wanted to see.
mm.
What you chose not to see is how he was treating others. How people treat others is how they're going to treat you eventually.
Mm, mm. Maya Angelou down to Ina, and boy, I tell you, that's powerful. I'm so very proud of you, Ina, because big congratulations. You received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award in 2024. I know that was special. What did it mean for you personally and spiritually?
It was awesome. It was a recognition, like I said, for things that, for me, I'm military. I just do stuff because I do stuff. I'm supposed to do stuff. That's what I do. I do it because I do it.
Yeah, that's right.
But to say, you know what? Yes, that's true. But what you're doing, is helping other people. And thank you. You know, that's what that was. Like I said, I I do stuff just because I do stuff.
Mm.
And it is not for recognition. It's not for any validation. It's what God told me to do, and I just say thank you for that. So.
Well, some of the things that you do are workshop and support groups you're leading. What does it look like when women come together to heal as a community? I know it helps the community. I know that for sure. But
Yeah.
what does that look like?
In the beginning, they're very apprehensive, and it's understandable, especially in the writing workshops, because like I said, their voice has been taken away. So to make that hard decision to, I'm going to use my voice again,
Mm,
it's hard. And there's a lot of pain and shame that is associated with the trauma. And so, like, they start out journaling. Excuse me. They start out journaling, and journaling is great for survivors. But journaling is also secret. So it's also keeping the pain and shame. But when you start talking to other people and when you start writing out your story for other people to read, you're releasing the pain and shame.
Mm,
It's hard in the beginning to release the pain and shame. It was hard to hear people read back my words in the
mm,
first book.
mm,
But once you release that pain and shame, it's released. It
mm,
doesn't reside in your body anymore. And to see the people, the women that in the beginning, they're so apprehensive, they're so scared, but by the time we get through the workshop, the power, the confidence, the, you know, it is amazing to see how their mind shifts and their face changes because they're no longer holding on to pain and shame.
mm.
Because once you tell it, it's told. And can't nobody use it against you once you tell it.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. That's amazing. That is the gift that God gave me to be able to do that. That is a gift to be able to see the beauty come back because God told us he will trade our ashes for beauty. That's a process that allows me to see that in action
Mm.
because they may be in ashes when we start, but man, that beauty, and they go on to maybe help other women and help other people and do other things, and it's just so beautiful to see.
The beautiful thing about these podcasts now, I mean, you can reach the world, and who knows who is listening, but I bet you there's someone right now who's listening to us, and maybe she's stuck in a toxic relationship. Maybe she feels unseen or unsure how to leave. What would you say directly to her, Ina?
To find a community and a good community, and be mindful because not all communities are good communities. um some communities say they are, but they trigger you. Find a good community for your healing. Find an excellent trauma therapist for your healing. And again, some trauma therapists may trigger you, so you may have to find another one.
Another, that's right.
So just be mindful about your healing. And for many people, they stay in the trauma because it may offend a family member because the family member is part of the trauma. But just know that Noah, and God brought this to my vision, that Noah had to take out everybody from the oldest person that ever lived to the youngest person that ever lived to start over. God, the flood that God brought killed everybody.
Mm,
So it doesn't matter if your family is the you know the catalyst to your trauma. You have to do what you have to do to heal and not worry about them. God doesn't tell us that we have to hold on to family trauma and generational trauma. That's the family that tells us we have to do that.
mm,
Allow the healing. Allow the healing. The
mm.
Bible gives us directions on how to deal with family and people that do it. I encourage you to prioritize your healing over your relationship with somebody in your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. We've only got a couple minutes left. Ina Johnson Meyers, what's on the horizon for you and When She Rise? Any new books, events, missions? How can people find you? All that good stuff.
Well, I can be reached on social media, all the platforms, at When She Rise One, the number one. When She Rise, the number one. You can connect with me. On the horizon, I have a couple of conferences that I'm going to. I have a book that I'm be working on. It's a soldier's book, so it's an anthology that I'm going to be on somebody else. And it's just I am in the season now where the anthologies that we've done, the Rising Above Narcissistic Abuse anthologies, they have been so um, instrumental and empowering that I am honestly looking at getting them turned into docuseries.
Mm,
Um, and I think that is the next phase for those. I'm so grateful for the women that have shared their stories on the anthologies because it has touched people all over the world. There the second anthology was being used in women's shelters. So it's just when you share your voice, you not only heal yourself, but you heal women and generations of that woman, I'm sorry, that is going through it. And I'm just grateful um, of how God is doing this. I'm grateful for all the women that use their voice. I'm grateful for the women that want to heal um, and not pour all that on their children and grandchildren.
Just to be clear, the anthology is a series. How many books? How many is it?
It's
Three
three of them.
books. All
Yeah.
right. They can get them. They can get them online. They can get them everywhere, right?
Amazon, yes. Amazon, then get them everywhere. Just
Get
you
them.
can
Get them.
Google Rising Above Narcissistic Abuse, or you Google me, and you'll see the books there. So it's just, I'm grateful. Like I said, this journey God has me on, it's not easy and it's not fun all the time, but it is so necessary when you start talking to the women that need that healing, and it's just that deserve that healing.
Yes, yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ina Johnson Meyers, a real one. It is so good to catch up again. Ina, your story is proof that no matter how deep the pain or how long the silence, healing is possible and purpose is still alive in you. Be sure to again follow her work, whensherise.org. Check out her books, workshops, speaking engagements. If you know of someone stuck in a narcissistic relationship, this is an episode to share. And if no one's told you today, you matter. Your voice, your story, your healing. It all matters. So subscribe to Black Mental Matters wherever you get your podcasts and visit blackmentalmatters.com for more. I'm Vince the Voice. I want you to stay strong, stay rooted, and remember, red flags don't turn green.